Hello, my name is Danielle Fish, and I'm a proud member of the Tri-Town Chamber of Commerce. We're here today at the Norton Media Center with candidate for Select Board, Michael Toole. Welcome, Michael. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Fine, thank you. So glad you're here and had a chance to sit down and tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more about yourself and your candidacy for Select Board.
No, thank you for coming to the Norton Media Center. It's wonderful. They take good care of us here. I'm a resident 13 years. Been a member of the Select Board. I was elected 3 years ago. Have two wonderful children. One's a freshman in college, one's a freshman in high school. And a little bit about myself. I'm actually a justice of the peace in town, and it's a lot of fun. But I've actually served on a lot of boards, from my children's athletics to community, and a proud member of the Lions Club in town. So I could go on and on talking about myself, but it's probably, there's not enough time.
Oh my goodness! Oh, well, I love hearing it. Well, tell me a little bit on some of the activities in town with your children that you were involved with. When you were young.
Yeah. So my daughter played softball, and I was actually on the board, and I was the vice president of the softball league. And my son did soccer, and I was able to coach him for many years. It was a lot of fun and so forth. I had traveled for work, so sometimes I would take a red eye home to be on the fields, but it was so much fun. And served on the basketball board for many years as well. So that's really, you feel like you're helping children, but also helping the town and local sports.
I agree. It's a great place to serve and spend your time, especially when it's your own kids.
Absolutely.
I think that's great. Now, you are a current Select Board member, so I'm sure many of the folks watching are very familiar with you and know your name from around town. But this is another term, so what is it that you'd like to do if you're elected to another term, and what do you see as the priorities, or maybe even some of the challenges that lay ahead for Norton?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because we've had so much good projects, so many great projects in town but we do have some challenges coming up about this. For my personal goals, one of the things I hope to do is really bring and expand residential services, things like trash. It's a little something, but we've seen 12 different companies serving Norton, tearing up our roads, charging ranging prices. So we feel like by offering and bringing the town, going to town, bringing that one service to town, we're able to save residents money. Some of the other things is the Select Board prioritization process. Well, that sounds like a fancy word. What that does is it allows the Select Board to really focus in and give the town manager direction when he's creating the budget. It's his budget, but the Select Board sets the priorities. And that really allows maybe a balance on, we want to focus on education, or we want to focus on senior services, or just expand certain things. One of the other things that I think we need to do, we've had a lot of growth over last year, commercial growth over the last few years, with the Blue Star projects. They've done great, beautiful buildings over there. But we have to look and see what is the next thing in Norton, and this is going to require a lot of boards coming together, but I think we have to identify where our next growth areas in town are going to be. And then finally, we have our master plan that we just adopted in this past year.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and being a member of the Tri-Town, you know that this is a 20-year plan. Okay, and we know that we have to, implement that and make sure that's going to be our playbook for the next 20 years. And it's going to take the whole town coming together, many boards, to implement all the suggestions that the master plan made.
Absolutely. Well, that sounds like there's a lot ahead, and certainly a lot on the plate of the Select Board. And so you're sitting there in that seat, right, after the election, and knowing that, what are the skills that you think are necessary for yourself or for anyone to be in that seat? What's important to you as a Select Board member to sort of embody and carry out to be successful at those things you just mentioned?
That's probably one of the defining things that I'm running. My biggest pride I have is constituent services. When someone calls, I put my cell phone out there, I put my email out there, my personal one, my town one, and I try to encourage people, if you've got a challenge in town, give me a call. Many people look at this, it's a volunteer position. I look at it as more of a part-time job. Put 15 hours a week into it, making sure working on projects, constituent services, and so forth. But beyond that, you need vision and creativity. And I feel that separates me and my opponent a lot. I feel that I've had the vision. I look for outside of the box thinking on how to solve these problems. And I'll throw them out there and see if they stick. One of the ideas I had was an appointing committee for the finance committee, and basically a group of people in town would come together and make the appointments. It did not pass the town meeting, but that's okay. It was my job to see how we could possibly change, and that's what I did. And that's the approach I take with all projects within town, and I think that's what separates me. I try to bring creativity and positive change, and then try to just help residents where I can.
Oh, the purest form, that's
Yeah.
great. Now, it's often said, and I'm sure you might have even been one of the folks that have said this before in the past, but Norton is a $60 million business,
Absolutely.
right? And what does that mean to you, especially as a select person?
No, I think that's a very astute observation. When we hear that, 60 million plus, right? It's probably closer to maybe 70 million, okay? I think it's important that we balance the budget and get it to a point where it's, we have so many people to serve, right? We know that the senior population represents about 15% of our population. The students represent about 17%. So I'm very equal, right? But we have to make sure that the services on both groups are being met. One, the students through the schools, and the seniors through the Council of Aging or Human Services. And sometimes that requires shifting budgets and setting that, as we talked about earlier, the prioritizations. Setting the prioritizations to make sure the balance is fair to everyone.
Right, and that's a lot too.
Yeah.
You think you're doing okay on that right now, or
Yeah.
do you see room for growth on that too?
Yeah, we do. I think I think there are ways that we can improve it as we talk about anything can be improved. But I think we've been blessed over the last few years to have pretty good economy. And I think one of the challenges that we have coming in here is it's going to get a little tougher, right? And so we have to really kind of say, this is what's important to us, residents and so forth, and really make those tough decisions and really say, okay, this is how we're going to balance this and give as many services as we can to the residents.
Sounds like a good start.
Yeah, so excited about it. It's a lot of work, but it's something. It's a blessing, if you will.
Right.
I'm honored to be serving the town.
Good. Well, we talked about challenges. Every town has its challenges, right?
Yeah.
It's unavoidable. But what are some of the positive things? What's good? What's happening in Norton? That a little bit of bragging here. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, this is I'm in, right? So it's one of the great things about Norton is when we look at some of our economic development, right? We're one of the only towns along 495 that have 2 exits. So, and while that sounds like, yeah, what's the big deal? That's very attractive to businesses.
That's quite a big deal.
Yeah, it is, right? So we've seen the Blue Star come in. We've gotten close to that 80-20 mixture of commercial and residential formula, where we're not there yet. But I feel like we have so much, the town has so much to offer its people. But more importantly, I think things like the master plan, when you look at the master plan, it talks about ecotourism. I would love to see us focus on what our strengths are and I try to expand that. So we're not only attracting just businesses, but we're attracting residents and really playing on our strengths. We're not Attleboro, we're not Taunton, we're not Mansfield, we're Norton. And I think that's where we're gonna really shine. And it's just a matter of developing these programs, ecotourism, an new economic zone. Those are the things. We just recently got 2 new wells going in Norton, so some of the challenges we've had with water are going to dissipate. So we're excited about some of the improvements in town.
That's great. No,
Yeah.
you love seeing that stuff on the horizon. And so for folks that are watching, you clearly you've been putting a lot of hard work and time and energy into your service for the town of Norton. So telling the voters, why do you want to continue on the select board? And why should they put you in for another 3-year term? And are you committed to that time? What are you going to do? Why should we send Mike back to the select board?
No, and I think that's really, it's been an honor over the last 3 years to serve the residents of Norton. It's really the closest thing, constituent services and working with them is the closest thing to calling I've ever had. I bring creativity, I bring vision and heart and perseverance to the town, but most importantly, experience. I'm the senior person on the select board. And while time itself does not qualify you, my understanding of how the town works, as well as balancing some of the history and the individuals that have served prior to me and bringing them into the discussions to ensure that we as a town keep moving forward. And that's where my strengths are. I know how to bring those relationships together and have a vision for the town. So on April 29th, I'm hoping to earn your vote for the select board for another 3 years.
Well, that's wonderful. I think that's great. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here today.